2022年、アメリカで大きな議論を醸し出した最高裁判決がありました。ロー対ウェイドという妊娠中絶法をめぐる訴訟で、1973年のアメリカ最高裁での判決がアメリカ憲法に反したものであったという理由から覆され、妊娠中絶法は各州に任されることとなりました。アメリカではプロライフ、命を支持とプロチョイス、選択を支持の議論は長い間行われており、今回の最高裁判決は保守派の州にとっては大きな勝利でした。2019年にアンプランドという映画が上映されました。この映画はアビー・ジョンソンという女性の実話が映画化されたものです。彼女はプランド・ペアレントフッドというアメリカ民主党によって支援されているアメリカの非営利団体で人工妊娠中絶を行うクリニック施設に勤務し、最年少でマネージャーになった女性です。日本であまり語られず知られていない事実である中絶及び経口中絶薬について、またなぜアメリカのクリスチャンがこの議論に積極的に参加するのか、プランドペアレントフッドで働いていた彼女ともう2人の証言をお聞きください。
Is Abby Johnson, a former clinic manager at Planned Parenthood. She used to be passionately pro-choice. She's our guest today on Focus on the Family, along with two other former abortion clinic workers, Annette Lancaster and Sue Thayer. Here's how the conversation started as we talked with those three women about their powerful experiences.
Let me say welcome to Focus on the Family.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you.
And, for the listener, this is powerful, the testimony of what you've gone through. And that's the spirit in which we want to have this discussion today. I mean, you've seen so much that we have not seen. You've experienced so much. You've been in the conversations. You've sat with these women in the clinics as pro-choice people. And we're going to unpack that today and give people a real idea of what goes on. I'm so grateful for you. Abby, let's start with you. But let's jump in with your stories. Abby, when you started working at Planned Parenthood, you were excited about being a part of that organization. I'm assuming all three of you actually had that perspective. Why, as a college young woman, Abby, did you feel like abortion was something to defend?
When I first got involved with Planned Parenthood, I didn't have a really solid opinion either way about abortion. But the woman that I met with Planned Parenthood was really emphatic that abortion needed to be safe and it needed to be legal, and that Planned Parenthood was helping women. And, as a young woman, I was 21 and, sort of this ideologue at the time, I'm thinking, okay,
Sure.
Well, I want to help women, right? Who doesn't want to help women? And I remember the first day that I went to the clinic and I showed up and it was sort of like a circus outside. So, you had people who were praying quietly and were trying to reach out, but you had people who were yelling and you had people with really huge signs that were graphic. And then you had people with signs that said, ask me about a free pregnancy test, so it was just
kind of calm things.
It was very, so it was this contrast on the sidewalk, but it made it look very chaotic. But I remember that first day, my job was to escort women from their car to the front door of the facility. And, the other volunteers and the staff, they're telling me, this is so that, they won't really hear the voices on the other side of the fence. And I just remember thinking at the time, okay, so if we're pro-choice, right, which I'm here, so I guess I'm pro-choice now. If we're pro-choice, what's the big deal? I mean, okay, they think they want an abortion, but let's say that they hear a voice on the other side of the fence and it calls to them and they go to the fence and this person offers them resources, or they say, have you thought about adoption? Or, we're for choice, right? So what? If she goes to the fence and she makes a different choice, she gets in her car and leaves.
But for clarification, Planned Parenthood management didn't have your view there, right?
Right. So, I mean, I said that. I mean, I remember saying that to someone. So what's the big deal?
Right.
If they do go talk to somebody. And, you know, I was immediately met with, Abby, they are terrible. They are manipulating these women. They say they're going to help them, but they don't. They're pro-birth. They're not pro-life, you know, and so I thought, well, I mean, they're the experts, right? They know what they're talking about.
This is your first day, right?
This is my first day. And so I thought, okay, well, then if they're the bad guys, I mean, from day one, they were painted as the enemy.
Well, and that's so often what needs to happen in this environment, particularly. Both sides can paint both sides, either side, as bad guys,
absolutely,
rather than a tragic situation. And Annette, let's pick up where you came into Planned Parenthood and a bit of that story, and then Sue, I'm coming to you. So, Annette, what was your story?
Sure. So my story is very similar to Abby's. I came in, I actually was sought out by a headhunter. So I wasn't looking for Planned Parenthood. But when the opportunity presented itself, I thought it's something that I can do. But eventually I realized that it was something that I couldn't do. I didn't have people telling me, or I didn't voice the opinion like Abby did about the choice, you know, thinking, you know, well, if these women want to make a different choice, why can't they? But I did think that a lot, like, what is the problem? I was always told that the protesters or the people even praying on the sidewalks needed to be trespassed from the property, make sure that they get away from the clients that were coming into the facility. And now that I think back on it, hindsight being 20/20, it just never really made sense.
Yeah. And one of the things, maybe Sue, you can elaborate on this, is, again, that consistent thought that Planned Parenthood and other clinics, too, downplay the abortion. You know, that's only a must do, that, you know, we're really here to help women with their health issues and things like that. Mm-hmm. But in reality, that's the cash flow. I mean, that's where the dollars come in. And is that a fair assessment? I mean, all three of you worked in the industry, but Sue, what was your experience?
I would say abortion is really the bottom line. For them, we had goals always for number of abortions done each month or number of referrals done. And if you didn't hit it, you had to explain why you didn't hit it and what you would do differently, you know, the next month so you would hit your goal.
I mean, that's amazing if you think about it. You would think that if this were purest help, it would be what it would be. You wouldn't have to have targets, which means toward the end of the month, I mean, I used to be in sales years ago in the paper industry. And, you know, if you were getting low in that month, you would be more aggressive with selling more product. And that is what you're talking about, just so people listening get it.
Yes.
That what they're saying, like on the 20th of the month, that they're behind by 20%. Hey, we need more abortion activity because we're not hitting our numbers.
Yes.
That is exactly what we did. You know, a woman would come in for a pregnancy test and it'd be positive, and we'd be saying, you know, how are you going to pay for diapers? Have you priced, you know, a car seat? Fear, you know, fear-based stuff about you're not going to be able to take care of this baby. Let's go ahead and get this set for you today. And, you know, if you wait any longer, the price is going to go up. So we would typically have that appointment in place before she left.
One thing that you mentioned, somewhere I found this, Abby, and any of you can respond to this, but actually, if you were ahead of your goals, you'd have pizza parties.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, they'd throw a celebration. That's unbelievable. Again.
Yeah, we did. If we met our goals, we would get some sort of reward. So as the manager, if we met our yearly goal, so financial goal, quotas, you know, things like that, then I would get a very large bonus as the manager, because I had been the person who would encourage my staff to be aggressive, to sell those abortions. And so I got this reward. And then monthly, if we met our goals, then I was allowed to reward my staff in some way.
You know, and I want to make sure people are hearing this. I mean, incentivizing the taking of human life. I mean, that's what that is. I know that it didn't connect when you were working there, and it obviously began to connect for all three of you. But I think most of us hearing this are just dumbfounded. It's not what the media presents as Planned Parenthood's image, right? We downplay this. We're only looking for the health and welfare of the woman. If we have to do abortion, we do it. No, they're counting the number. They want the cash.
And you know, as I look back, and I think for Annette and Sue and myself, all three of us, I sit here and I say these things about incentivizing selling abortion, incentivizing the destruction of human life, and how I participated in that. I didn't think really anything about it at the time. And I think, what was going on in my mind that I allowed that to take place? That was normal to me. And the only explanation, people will say, you know, gosh, Abby, how did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, that's the power of sin.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think I was really manipulated because my facility was a little bit different. We were told we did not have quotas, but at the same time, we were being charged with aggressively getting higher numbers of abortions. And so that didn't sit well with me. And I asked one day at a meeting as the manager, I said, so I'm not understanding. You're telling me I don't have a quota, but then you're telling me that my numbers are dropping. So what are they dropping from? What's the standard?
Yeah, what you might call a quiet quota.
Right.
But they even, if I remember correctly looking at the material, they would even instruct you on how to manipulate, ironically. You know,
Absolutely.
as you said a moment ago, Abby, you know, they said that the pro-life community manipulated women. But here this woman comes in and you're giving her phraseology
Yes.
that points her toward the abortion decision rather than a different decision.
I called it emotional manipulation.
What did that sound like? Give me an example of how you would do that.
This is the best thing for you and your other children. This is the best thing that you can do right now for your career.
Yeah.
Things like that.
One of you had the story where they instructed you if a woman were to say, well, God forgive me for this, what were you told to say?
That was me. I was told to say, well, what type of God do you believe in? Do you believe in a forgiving God?
Right. And that
think
was
of
a
that.
training. That was a training, actually, Sue. I don't know if you did this training, but that was a training that was put out by CAPS, the Consortium of Abortion Providers, and it was called a DVIS training.
Yes.
It was, I don't remember what it all stood for. It was like destigmatizing, and anyway, and so it was basically, it instructed us on how to be better salespeople. So it scripted us on what to say back to women. So overcoming any objection that they may have. Yeah. And what I heard in my experience, the objection that I heard the most had to do with God and religion. And, you know, I'm still struggling. Is this a sin? I've been taught to believe this is a sin. And that was exactly what we told everybody. Well, don't you believe in a forgiving God? Don't you believe that God understands your struggle right now?
Right.
And that he understands that you're just trying to do what's best for your family? And, you know, and the women are like, well, yeah, God does forgive. So it's this idea of presumptive forgiveness, which that in itself is a sin.
Well, right.
Yes.
And I want to make sure we're clear on this now that you're on the other side of all of this and the scales have fallen from your eyes, literally.
Literally.
How would you frame that today if someone were to talk in those terms about God? If a woman came to you today and said, is God going to forgive me for this? The answer is yes, of course. But there's a better choice.
Right. You don't have to make this choice today. You don't have to make a choice where God has to give forgiveness, right? You can make a choice for life where you don't have to live with regret. You don't have to live with sin. And we're going to help you make that choice. We're going to live life with you. We're going to walk with you.
Abby, I want to zero in for a minute because it's not all theoretical for you. And I'm not sure, Annette and Sue, if your story, and I want you to add to this, but you had 2 abortions personally.
Right.
And the impact of that on you. Describe, briefly what happened and what state of mind were you in, what state of life were you in. Just give the listeners some perspective on your own abortions.
I was in college and with a guy that, I probably shouldn't have been with. And We had a physical relationship very quickly. And the first time I found out I was pregnant, I just remember thinking, this can't happen to me because I'm a good Christian girl. And this doesn't happen to good Christian. And I was on birth control. So, birth control is supposed to hide my sin, right?
Wow.
And so this can't be happening to me. And I was so afraid of disappointing my parents. My dad, like a deacon in their church, and, good Southern Baptist. And I just thought, they can't know that this is who I am. And I wished that someone would have asked the question. I wish that someone would have said to me, okay, Abby, yes, your parents may be disappointed that you didn't follow the plan, right? That they taught you your whole life. The formula for marriage, right? But do you think they're going to be more disappointed to find out that, okay, you messed up, you didn't follow the plan? Or are they going to be more disappointed to find out that you took the life of their grandchild? And if somebody would have phrased that to me, I would have known the answer. I would have known that my parents would have wanted the opportunity to save the life of their grandchild. But I took that opportunity away from them.
So you quietly had that first abortion.
I quietly had my first abortion. And I would love to tell you that I thought about adoption or parenting or anything like that. But the guy that I was with, he told me, I've taken other girls to this clinic before. I can take you. And we went. I had the abortion. I had a surgical abortion. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to never talk about this again. I'm going to stuff it down. And, abortion, I remember thinking at the time, abortion's not right. But this time it was me.
Yeah.
And people just wouldn't understand my situation.
Yeah. Then
about 3 years later, with the same guy, married him. And he decided that he didn't want to be in our marriage anymore. And after he had left, I found out I was pregnant again. And I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot be stuck with this man for the rest of my life. And by that time, I was working at Planned Parenthood. And if you were working at Planned Parenthood and you needed an abortion, it was free. And so I thought, well, okay, this will be easier for me this time. And I chose the medication abortion because that seemed more natural. We were telling everyone, oh, it's just like a heavy cycle. It's no big deal.
This is where you take an oral
pill. You take a series of pills.
It induces.
Right. And at the time I just thought, okay, well, no big deal, right? I mean, it'll just be like a cycle that I have every month and no big deal. And I didn't think in advance of what this would look like. I didn't think, okay, I'm going to essentially labor at home. I'm going to pass a baby. And then I'm going to have to make a decision about what to do with that baby. Medication abortion is on the rise. And Sue can talk about that because that directly, that's really her story as well. We don't know the long-term effects yet of a generation of women who took a series of pills, were told this was going to be no big deal, and then looked at their baby in the toilet. We don't know emotionally what that is doing to our women.
Or to our culture.
Yes.
The desensitization of human life.
Absolutely.
And I think that, Sue, let me ask you about your experience with that medication abortion. You've been working either in the abortion industry or for the pro-life community most of your life. So what are you seeing taking place today?
Well, part of the reason I started working at Planned Parenthood was because the clinic that I was at didn't do abortions. But then in 2007, they came up with the idea to do chemical or medication abortions, like what Abby just described, only by a computer type connection. So a Skype connection. So no doctor or medical people on staff, non-medical people like managers and clinic assistants were trained in a day to do transvaginal ultrasounds, which is a really bad idea. And then, for example, in Iowa, there is no waiting period for a woman seeking abortion. So a woman could come in, have the 3-minute urine pregnancy test, find out it's positive, and we could literally say, hey, we can take care of the problem for you today, 45 minutes in and out. All you need to do is take these pills. So aside from the fact of the non-medical staff and just the danger of it all, on top of it, there was no time at all for a mom to really ponder that. So we would have women that went to other clinics, other Planned Parenthood facilities in Iowa, take the first set of pills and then come back to my center at Storm Lake and say, I can't believe I did that. I wasn't thinking, this was before the abortion pill reversal. So there were a lot of regrets. But we had a list, I don't know if you guys did too, but of words never to use. And then what we say instead. And, I remember baby and fetus were on the never say. We would call it tissue or a heavy period. But when women would leave the clinic with their little brown bag of pills and take the pills at home that start the contraction, she would often see this little tiny, 8 or 9 week baby. And unprepared for that, we had women put them in little Ziploc bags and bring them back to the clinic and say, you did not tell me it was a baby.
Wow. I mean, and that's the core issue, and that's why we fight in the pro-life community the way we do, hopefully with the gentleness of the heart of God.